Hello to America and hello to the world. Welcome to episode 3 of Barbara Stone Live. This is a show that speaks truth to the U.S. government tyranny. It is not intended to express my personal opinions, but to describe the facts and the law. I head up a group of victims all over the country of government crimes. I am a personal victim myself of the crimes I will be discussing. These crimes can only occur because all branches of government work together to strip and deprive our unalienable rights to make us slaves and wards of the government. We are in a U.S. war against humanity, a U.S. Holocaust. The government crimes against its population are the worst possible crimes under international law. They are known as atrocity crimes and include crimes against humanity, genocide, crimes of aggression, and war crimes. It is for this reason that I have declared my candidacy as the People's President in 2024. I am a former attorney who practiced law only in real estate with prominent firms in New York and Florida. I never set foot in court until I became personally embroiled in the government murder-for-hire / human trafficking racket they call guardianship, where my mother was captured. Once you become embroiled in any of their crime rackets, you become a government prisoner, where they deploy endless terror tactics to silence you, steal your possessions, and destroy your life. Each branch functions as a protection arm for the others. You are falsely accused of their crimes so they can weaponize their man-made laws against you. You are extorted in fraudulent lawsuits they call slap suits, where the perpetrators gang stalk you to steal your assets in the guise of a civil court. Contrary to being a civil suit, this lawsuit is a string of crimes, including extortion, scheme to defraud, conspiracy against your unalienable rights to free speech, and much more. Instead of using the devious names they invent to call their crimes, we must call them by their accurate criminal terms: treason, tyranny, and terror. I call their right-stripping laws and jurisdictionless courts Nuremberg laws and Nuremberg courts. Their crimes are far worse than the intolerable acts enumerated in the Declaration of Independence, for which we declared independence from England. I have filed hundreds of futile lawsuits against top-level government employees in so-called courts all over the country, appeared in so-called legislative hearings, and filed cease and desist letters to thousands of government employees to seek remedy for myself and for others. There is no remedy, as all government branches ensure that the crimes are covered up. And when you go up against the government crime syndicate alone, the only result is vicious retaliation, threats, and further extortion of your property. Yet the public remains sleeping and fails to understand the simple reality that the acts of the U.S. government fall squarely within the definition of terror under its own code section 18 U.S.C. 2331. To expect remedy from the government, and particularly engage with them alone, is the very definition of insanity. The public must hold the perpetrators criminally and civilly liable by acting in unison, using people's grand juries that are a legitimate fourth branch of government belonging to the people, as affirmed in the Supreme Court case of U.S. v. Williams, 504 U.S. 36 in 1992. Moreover, it is a fundamental and common law and common sense principle that, of course, we have the unalienable right to defend, uphold, and protect our unalienable rights. As a result of my firsthand experience as a victim, knowing the systemic crimes against hundreds of other victims, and with 25 years of experience as an attorney, I have rare and unique expertise about the diabolical crime schemes devised by the U.S. government in their war on humanity, how all branches work together to conceal, conspire, and cover up the government crimes, and how they use their positions to weaponize their man-made rules, codes, and laws against whistleblowers, victims, and their political opponents. I also understand that it is only we the people who hold remedy, and that can only happen when they peacefully and lawfully unite for remedy. This is a summary of my platform. 1. To reclaim, secure, and protect the unalienable rights of we the people that are being deliberately deprived by the government. 2. To make the public aware that there is no remedy to these crimes by the government itself, as all branches of government are working together. 3. To wake up America to the fact that the government crimes are the most severe crimes possible and that they are known as atrocity crimes under international law. 4. To wake up America to the depravity of the atrocity crimes and the treasonous and terrorist acts used to deceive and divert the public from understanding the extent of the crimes. 5. To make the public aware that it is only we the people who can remedy these crimes, that remedy is only possible when we the people understand the extent of the crimes and the people act in unison to reclaim and protect their rights. A united we the people is fundamental to remedy. There would be no remedy to the tyranny of the king unless we the people united. 6. To wake up America that the people's grand jury is the fourth branch that belongs to the people, and they must hold people's grand juries to hold the government perpetrators civilly and criminally liable. Please listen to, like, subscribe, and share this show to learn more about my platform and about our unalienable rights and the people's grand jury. You can also learn more about me and my platform on my website called peoplesrightsforum.com. I need your vote. It is one thing for whistleblowers and newscasters to inform the public of the crimes against humanity by the government, but we need a route to remedy by action. That is why I am running for People's President in 2024, to take peaceful and lawful action to uphold, protect, and secure the unalienable rights of we the people. Please help me help you by supporting me and by your vote. This is a huge wake-up call to the public, to the U.S. war on humanity and the dire need to act in unity for lawful remedy. The longer we fail to recognize that we the people alone hold remedy and fail to act in unison and peaceful remedy, the more entrenched we will become in the government crimes. No one has the luxury of remaining uneducated about the U.S. war against humanity, against its population, or their diabolical tactics to deprive and divert the public from recognizing their agenda, or about the platform of the candidates running for office. It is inconceivable that we have a parade of people running for office, most being, quote, government career criminals who have made a career of perpetrating the crimes described in this show. They intentionally fail to articulate their platform so the public can make an informed voting decision, and they avoid making a commitment to the people of their agenda to evade being held accountable. It is just as inconceivable that the people enable candidates to run on a non-existing and non-disclosed platform and ardently support nothing more than their grandstanding, attacks on their opponents, and empty words of outrage without a plan of action and commitment. In this episode 3, we will discuss 1, the ultimate treason and war crime by the U.S. against its population, as the U.S. is not a democratic republic. It is a corporation, a corporatocracy. 2, that remedy can only be effectuated by we the people. In the ultimate irony, the U.S. war against humanity is being waged by a corporatocracy, not a democratic republic. The U.S. government no longer exists as a democratic republic, if it ever did. When you understand that concept, all of its atrocity crimes will make sense. The unalienable rights of living, breathing human beings are being stolen and converted to fictitious entities known as corporations. Corporatocracy is defined in Wikipedia as an economic, political, and judicial system controlled by corporations or corporate interest. It says the concept has been used in an explanation of bank bailouts, excessive pay for CEOs, as well as complaints such as the exploitation of national treasuries, people, and natural resources. Another definition in Urban Directory is rule by an oligarchy of corporate elites through the manipulation of a formal democracy. Corporatocracy is a word popularized by author John Perkins. In an interview in Monthly Review about his book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman in 2004, Perkins describes what he calls a system of corporatocracy and greed as driving forces behind establishing the U.S. as a global empire. He says he took his role as a, quote, economic hitman to expand the influence of the U.S. government. He says that economic hitmen, which he identifies as EHMs, are highly paid professionals who cheat countries around the globe out of trillions. They funnel money from world corporate agencies into the coffers of huge governments and the pockets of a wealthy few families who control the planet's natural resources. Their tools include fraudulent financial reports, rigged elections, payoffs, exploitation, sex, and murder. He says this is perhaps the most important revolution in human history. People everywhere, as well as nature, are facing the same crisis. We are beginning to see how we relate to everything else and how an important role we human beings play in protecting the planet. It is about waking up. We are all waking up to this incredible platform that human beings have. Perkins likens the U.S. to an empire. It is reported in the year 27 AD that Rome changed officially from being a republic to an empire, a centralized imperial authority, and that Rome's decline was not abrupt, but rather a gradual disintegration of the various components that made the Rome Empire great. Does this sound familiar? The U.S. government and all of its agencies and branches are corporations. Thus, the government has no authority, perceived or otherwise, or jurisdiction whatsoever over we the people. The corporate shareholders posing as public servants cannot even take an oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, because they themselves are foreign and domestic enemies. They are perpetrating the ultimate acts of treason and war crimes against their own country. The U.S. government and all government agencies are registered as corporate business entities in Dun & Bradstreet. Each corporate branch and agency has one or more corporate tax numbers called DUNS, capital D, capital U, capital N, capital S numbers, DUNS numbers. The Dun & Bradstreet website describes DUNS numbers as a unique 9-digit identifier for a business created by a credit bureau. Dun & Bradstreet. The federal government adopted the DUNS identification number as its principal business identifier in 1994. In 1998, the DUNS number was incorporated as the U.S. Government Contractor Identification Code. The website states that a DUNS number verifies a business as a legal entity, a corporation, LLC, C Corp, or L Corp, etc. D&B verifies a business status and business structure as a corporation, LLC, etc. The DUNS number is used for being awarded government contracts. So the corporate government agencies, such as the U.S. Supreme Court, can become hired as subsidiary contractors of a branch of their corporate parent, the United States of America government. It is the stuff of the Twilight Zone, but it is the irrefutable truth. I'm going to walk you down this rotted corporate carcass. The United States of America is listed under at least two names in Dun & Bradstreet. There is a listing as Government of the United States with a D&B number as 161906193 and the address for the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest. When I called the number that was listed, it was answered the White House. There is also another listing as the United States of America with a Dun & Bradstreet number 096226982 and an address at 3521 International Court Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20009-3023. Telephone number 202-244-4319. When I called that number, it was a fax number. The Egyptian embassy is listed at the address shown for the United States of America at 3521 International Court Northwest. Then I looked up the Dun & Bradstreet information for the United States of America. There is a link that takes you to the key principles of the United States of America. The key principle is shown as Abdul Ghaffur Muhammad. He is identified in a Google search as the ambassador of the Maldives. The link is shown on my transcript that I will provide to all who request it. I can be reached at barbara@barbarastone.org. My contact information will be repeated at the end of this episode. There is a link to more contacts for Abdul Muhammad. When I clicked that link, I was directed to a link that identified Francis Underwood as, quote, President at United States of America at the United States of America. That link is shown on my transcript of this show as well. A Google search of Francis Underwood shows him as a fictional character. I had gone through the same search sequence several months ago and found that Abdul Muhammad was listed as a key principal, and when I tracked the link to more contacts, Joe Biden was listed as a contact and shown as in the presidential capacity that the fictitious character Francis Underwood is now listed. People named Brett Eades and Dante, D-O-N-T-E, Kirksey, K-I-R-K-S-E-Y, were shown as colleagues of Francis Underwood, the fictional character. I kept repeating the search, and the players shifted around. I formed no conclusion as to this bizarre, demonic government farce. I reached out to another former attorney who resigned her position once she woke up to the government crime syndicate. She was of the opinion that the identified key principles could be, quote, debtors in possession of our bankrupt government. I welcome any logical conclusions from the public. Again, I can be reached at barbara@barbarastone.org. I also looked up the U.S. Supreme Court. It has 2 Dun & Bradstreet numbers. It is listed in Dun & Bradstreet as, quote, Supreme Court, United States, with the designation as subsidiary in Dun & Bradstreet number 161906136. It is also listed as, quote, Supreme Court, United States branch, with the designation branch, with a D&B number 111477469. The government maintains the charade that it is a democratic republic, so the public will believe that its Nuremberg laws, Nuremberg courts, and Nuremberg tactics are legitimate government acts. But they are the acts of a corporation and being perpetrated by imposter actors pretending to be government employees. They are, in fact, corporate agents who have a contract with the corporate government to commit their crimes. The federal government is a fictitious government entity and is only used for the purpose of pillaging, extorting, and money laundering taxpayer funds. The corporate government and its corporate agencies owe their allegiance to their other corporate branches who are their shareholders, not to we the people, their employers. Many who have attempted to obtain their oath of office find that it does not exist. The corporate government contracts with other corporate agencies such as the IRS to extort you to pay taxation without representation in the guise that the IRS is a government agency. That crime alone, taxation without representation, was at the heart of the intolerable acts for which the country seceded from England. The intolerable acts perpetrated by the King of England in the 17th and 18th century pale in comparison to those being perpetrated against we the people in the 21st century. They are more accurately identified as atrocity crimes that originate, just as did the intolerable acts, from the theft and deprivation of our unalienable rights. In an article called The Myth of U.S. Democracy and the Reality of the U.S. Corporatocracy in the Huffington Post, written by Bruce E. Levine, a practicing criminal psychologist and author, he states, the United States is not ruled by a single deranged dictator, but by an impersonal corporatocracy. Thus, there is no one tyrant that Americans can first hate and then finally overthrow to end ceaseless wars and economic injustices. Revolutions against Gaddafi-type tyrants require enormous physical courage. In the U.S. corporatocracy, the first step in recovering democracy is the psychological courage to face the humiliation that we Americans have neither a democracy nor a republic, but are in fact ruled by a partnership of, quote, too big to fail corporations, the extremely wealthy elite, and corporate collaboration of government officials. Levine describes on a topic-by-topic basis ranging from wars, healthcare, the bank bailout, how the American public objects and disagrees with the imposter government acts and how their objections are ignored and have zero impact on policy. In fact, the policies for each topic he describes are implemented by installing the heads of giant corporate agencies onto the heads of the parallel corporate government agencies to invent and implement them. Levine says that in the U.S. corporatocracy, corporations and the wealthy elite directly and indirectly finance candidates who are then indebted to them. It is common for these indebted government officials to appoint to key decision-making roles those friendly to corporations, including executives from these corporations. And it is routine for high-level government officials to be rewarded with high-paying industry positions when they exit government and for former government officials to be given high-paying lobbying jobs to ensure the corporate interests will be taken care of. He identifies people who epitomize this integrated corporate racket and how this racket has become even more infested as some of the corporate raiders hired by the corporate government do not even leave their corporate jobs, but serve in a dual capacity to pillage, traffic, and money launder the property of America and the world population. Levine's article was written in 2011. It has gotten far worse. Our unaudited corporate government, that is, in fact, in undeclared bankruptcy, is screaming to raise what it calls the, quote, debt ceiling that is, in truth talk, pillaging, a war crime under its own government-promulgated Geneva Convention. So why do the most demonic atrocity crimes in history continue to exist? For two reasons. It is because the fraudulent U.S. corporate government functions exactly as it intends. It is a war machine against the American and world public. Their atrocity crimes are engineered in collusion with so-called private corporations and all businesses, just as the Nazi war machine was executed because it was supported by American financiers and businesses. 2, the American and the world public wears blinders and allows themselves to be terrorized by color of law imposter government actors who have no authority, power, legitimacy, or authenticity to write self-serving man-made codes to dictate when you can take out your garbage, much more control your fundamental human rights. It is the height of insanity for people to believe these corporate entities have authenticity or authority or legitimacy to perpetrate crimes, or that they will self-correct their deliberate, lucrative enterprise. Is a light bulb starting to go off? Are you beginning to understand the monumental depths of this shroud of treason, tyranny, and terrorism that envelopes our country? By understanding the U.S. is a corporation and its corporate structure, the cloud of self-delusion is lifted and makes simple to understand the path to remedy. The blinders being worn by the public come off and the mysterious depravities become glaringly evident. It becomes crystal clear that the U.S. is not going to self-correct its profitable business of stealing your unalienable rights, your property, possessions, family, liberty, and life. That the only remedy is by we the people acting in unison and unity to uphold, defend, and protect their unalienable rights by lawful we the people grand juries. The schemes are enabled and protected by the Supreme Court of corporate criminals, trespassers, and our Supreme Court building. In one of their man-made fictions, they invented the doctrine of so-called corporate personhood. By their lunatic dribble, in the case of Citizens United versus FEC, which is Federal Election Commission, 228 U.S. 310 and 2010. The corporate parenthood and their fictitious corporate world is a doctrine which holds that corporations are separate entities that deserve to be treated as people or persons under the 14th Amendment. They pretend in a long-winded, nonsensical rant that the political donations are speech protected by the First Amendment, thus opening the floodgates to unlimited corporate, personal, and corporate, to unlimited corrupt personal and corporate donations. This dually makes obvious that their allegiance is to the criminality and corruption of their corporate agencies while trampling the unalienable rights of living, breathing men and women. We must claim, protect, and secure our unalienable rights and hold the government perpetrators criminally and civilly liable by lawful people's grand juries and other lawful means. I welcome and encourage everyone to join our People's President 2024 platform and People's Grand Jury. I can be reached at barbara@barbarastone.org. I look forward to hearing from you.